Hey Russ, long time no see. I know we planned to do our third video in this series a few years ago, but the market, time, and everything else got in the way. But we are back. If you want to finish our trilogy of Morgan 50 videos, you've landed on the right video. It's been 2 years, I think, and I looked at the NGC set registry list today,
Yeah,
525 competitive sets
that's awesome.
for Morgan 50s. And
And
what's
applause to everybody out there who's doing
Yeah,
it.
yeah, and right now, um, collector Brian Thomas, his name's on the public facing side of the site, so I feel comfortable saying it.
Okay.
Brian Thomas and the Thomas Creek 50 collection is 98% complete and is running away with 187,275 points. Um, the next closest competitor he has, Terry LS's Terry's Morgan 50 set, is 100% complete, but is trailing by 60,000 points in the set registry.
How was
So
that?
what the reason for that is that Brian's set's got MS68 coins, 66 dimples, lot
Oh,
of
okay.
CAC material, 67 plus. So I know in the context of what we've been talking about in our videos, we're talking about this set is accomplishable. All 50 coins is accomplishable for the collector who, wants to be into these for, between $100 and $400 a coin with plenty of coins in the 85, 90, $100, $125 range. So when we were looking at three, $400 coins, we thought, well, every set needs some special coins for you to chase. So we
Yeah.
put some of them in there, but those are the keys of this everyman set, really, or the semi keys of the set. So we don't expect every collector to go out there and put together sets with dimples and plus grades and top pop kind of coins, but you certainly can. And for that collector, you're gonna have to compete against some collectors who are really astute in their buying habits and what their tastes are. But like I said, 525 people have liked this idea so far, and that's just on the NGC side. I can report that My Collect, which is a numismatic social media site, also has their own set registry program with awards. They added the Morgan 50, and who knows, maybe in some time CAC or PCGS may get on the ball on it. But right now, NGC was the first to adopt it, and so you can go back look at our other videos to see what we had to say about New Orleans coins, Philadelphia coins. I'm sure our price analysis back then will be a little bit dated. The Morgan dollar market has increased. Some of these prices for common date coins has increased in the last 2 years. Do you want to speak on that real quick? I know you've been looking and studying the numbers as we prepare for today's episode.
Yes, and I'll comment just before you mentioned like the NGC registry set. And as a PCGS registry set contributor myself, I also understand that the guys with those very high grade, the dimples, the 68 coins, may also have a cross section of their coins in other types of sets. So, there are some people who will pick as many different types of sets as they can and click the button, and all those coins will populate in there, which is probably why the one and two guys are so far and away ahead of the rest of the pack. Um, but as far as the market is concerned, to meet your question, um, despite the fact that demand for silver it has gone up, but not noticeably so. Gold is certainly taking the center stage. The underlying spot price for any kind of pre-1933 numismatic coin is going up in tandem with the spot price. Silver, however, I think when we were talking 2 years ago, wasn't it around 22 to $24 an ounce?
Yeah, yeah, it was at that time that was a pretty stout price, but that's very modest compared to where it is now.
Yeah, so we're now 30, and we hit 33 and we bump back down again. I think silver's got a ton of potential at this point, whether you buy 90% or whether you buy, your 50-piece Morgan dollar set. And I think that the numbers we talked about today will kind of give everybody an idea as to what to look for and how that you just can't assign one price to one coin and expect to pay that price. It depends on how good they are. Here at RARCOA, we have double row boxes by date in 63 and 64 grade. So I can look through 50 coins at a time and pick out three or four that I really like. And the rest are like, ugh, are those three or four supposed to be the same price as the other 47? No. And what's going to happen today when we discuss the average price and the high and the low, I think it'll emphasize if you go for quality and then you talk for price, you're going to have a far better outcome on this project than you will if you just go by price.
Right, and I want to speak really quick. Russ brought up this silver and gold kind of comparison, and I won't dig too deeply into each of our backgrounds here, and spare you that long story. But I think you're going to find very few uh, professional numismatists in the field who have put as much time and energy in studying coin prices and trends and anomalies within the market as like what Russ and I've done over the length of our careers. And that's elevated Russ to be one of the preeminent U.S. coin dealers in the country, and the senior numismatist for RARCOA. And it's what I put into a lot of the analytical articles we write on Coin Week. I would say that when you're looking at gold at this price point, my hunch is a lot of this price is being driven by institutional buying. And what that ends up doing is that ends up squeezing out like I would just say the hobby collector, the hobby investor, the sort of the hard money numismatic buyer, because I think they look at $3,500 gold when they have this muscle memory of paying $1,800 or $2,000 for a generic saint or 20
Or
lib.
even 2,700.
Right, right, or even 27. Yeah, they have this muscle memory of that. So they're looking at this $3,500 price point, and to a certain point, it starts to feel like real money. And I think that we are seeing like, that I think is why there is a big opportunity in silver coins. Silver coins have always served that sort of that hard money traditional type of collector who doesn't want to go so deeply into pressure the gold side of it, because you get more coins, more variety, more history in silver coins for the same amount of money. And I think that that's like what drew a lot of people to Morgan dollars. Once the bags were depleted and the coins started selling at, like hotcakes at coin shows, it's certainly what helped elevate the rare coin market when third party grading came into to being, and people were looking for Jim Morgans and all these dates. Um, and I think now is probably a really good opportunity because these silver coins have been overshadowed for quite a long time, and I think now they look affordable to me at the current spread, and I think that if you're a savvy and sophisticated buyer, there's more than enough information available now for you to like make sound decisions when it comes to which coins to buy.
I would agree with that. I'd agree with that. There will be, there is obviously a base level for, a graded 63, graded 64, graded 65 silver dollar. There is currently the same thing going on with a graded St. Gaudens coin. However, that price is fluctuating far greater than I think the silver dollars are. I think the silver dollars are, you don't have to watch the market every day to determine what the value is. They're pretty predictable. The trends, however, are on the up. And you can just tell that by watching the television and and listening to the radio advertising. Um, but with gold, we've had to change our television ads on RARCOA Direct. Just yesterday, we were changing the $10 Liberty and MS61 because the price was like below melt. I mean, way below melt, and it was a certified MS61 coin. So yeah, it can be a problem. But this kind of this focus in on the 50-piece set, I think allows you to uh, comfortably acquire the right coin, maintaining a condition, look, and then worrying about the price. Because as I think we've said before, you might have to pay up for something, but the price eventually catches up and then exceeds what you paid for it. Quote from John Ford.
Yeah, and just to keep in mind, like one final nail in the coffin here for the gold. I think if you buy a 24 Saint and 64 now, and I don't know what you're charging for them, Russ, but I think at the Baltimore show you could probably you could probably get them for $400 or $500 cheaper than you can now. But let's say you bought one at $3,500, and if gold goes down to $1,800 again, and I'm not suggesting there's any reason why it will anytime soon, but if gold goes down to like some tradition, some level that we saw a few years ago, then your coin is going to decline in value to compensate for the decline in the spot price. If silver goes from $35 to $25, you're not going to see the same market retraction on the value of these certified Morgan dollars. You're just not going to see it because the Morgan dollars are more driven by the demand and popularity of the series and the grade than by simply by the bullion value of the coin.
And the affordability.
Right.
I mean, I
So
think that's why so many people get into it, is because they are inexpensive and you can get a box in the mail. You can enjoy the coin and put it into that set.
right. So let's start. Let's start. We're going to do CC mints and we're going to do the S mints. So CC mints are going to be pretty quick and easy. We got three of these coins. So let's start there first. So we're going to be looking at the 82, 83, and 84 CC. And for people who are just getting into Morgan dollars, what is the appeal of the CC mint coins? Why are they essential for our set? And why are they, why is it only a few dates that really qualify to be in a set like this?
Well, Carson City is, the Wild West, and in everybody's who's at least probably 40 years and older, the Wild West has an allure to it, and it always has. Um, there have been hordes of these coins that have come to market, namely the GSA hordes. Uh, and I should preface that by saying that any coin that is in a larger format GSA holder that's certified is going to be a completely separate discussion because they usually tend to bring a premium. But you also have to have Carson Cities, and the 82, while it's not in the same category as 83 and 84, it's a little bit more difficult to find, but not by much. You have then an addition, you have one of each mint in your 50 coin set, and 82, 83, 84 allows you, a good cross section. And it also means that you might be able to build out that set from 1878 to 1893.
To me, what's interesting is you could go, I think when I got into the coin collecting hobby, I think you could get a CC Mint Morgan dollar for about 75, $80. And it was probably in the late 80s, early 90s. 2010, 2015, I think you're paying about 200. I think you're paying probably over 400 now. And what Russ was talking about, like these coins that are in the original certified coins that were kept intact in their GSA holder, bringing more of a premium. This is just one of those curiosities of numismatics where for decades dealers couldn't and collectors couldn't wait to crack them out of those holders to send them in to get them slabbed. And then there came a point when we started to realize that we had gone through a fair amount of these and have selected the better ones to send in for slabbing, which meant that those holders were cracked out. But that it was getting more and more difficult to find superb gem or Jimmy coins in these original holders. Where they were coming from is the fact, well, basically when the GSA sales happened, they were nationally advertised. These were the coins that Jesse James didn't get. There was a whole brochure spiel about it. And it was basically one of the largest public auctions ever that the government held. And they basically sold the coins for about a decade. These sales went on. And because the way the government did it, these weren't bought by in wholesale by marketers and the majority of it wasn't kept within the industry. The inventory was spread throughout the country, very diffuse, and and individual collectors, low, like, collectors who maybe that GSA coin was their first coin, maybe a brown pack Ike was their second coin, and then they got a couple mint sets and we never saw them again. These types of collectors held over half of the inventory, I would say. And so as they're coming back into the market, and we're processing these sometimes for the first time, some of the select coins are being sent in and kept in the GSA holder to sort of respect that as a numismatic collectible in its own right. So you can have an MS64 1883cc in that GSA holder certified by PCGS or NGC, and then one in a just straight up holder, straight up NGC or PCGS holder. And it just seems like the market is shifting where they want that originality. They want to keep that nostalgic connection to its original release packaging. It's very
One of
interesting.
and one of the greatest things was that the grading services determined how to put that label, the grading label, on the holder itself. And also to touch on what you said that um, as these coins were being sold in these holders and then packaged and then mailed via USPS, I mean, the number of times I've come across like a collection doing an status appraisal or, a date of death evaluation or something like that. And I find these original boxes that have been opened up, but the client's name is on it, on the label. And this is how they must have arrived from the government. And I think this was like running concurrently as they were selling mint and proof sets, but this was something else entirely. This actually, I think, opened a lot of people's eyes to collecting coins, whereas before you just had the sort of the diehards who wanted like an example of each date that came, or the mint set and the proof set that came out that year. So all of a sudden, I see a lot of these things. Yes, I get it. They're cracked out. Sometimes I see them with PCGS holders that say GSA on it. It doesn't quite hold the same feeling, but I'm not sure that we can go too much down the GSA topic without getting lost in what we're trying to do on these values here with the non-GSAs. And even so, my numbers, I couldn't take out the numbers that I was evaluating on the GSAs, but I'll mention that as we go along if there's something in there.
Sure, and I'll say one. We'll get through the prices for the individual dates, but I want to make one more point. So obviously, coins. The weird thing about coins is like you're holding history in your hands. That's just like a cliche that you hear a lot, and so you can think about the Old West, right? You can
Yeah.
you can think about the GSA sales, but you also have to think about these two things. So when the silver stockpile that the government had was depleted in the early 1960s, this is before the Congress decided to pass the Coinage Act of 65, change all of our circulating silver coins to clad coins. The numismatic community was aware that the government had a stockpile of a few million CC mint Morgan dollars. And if they weren't like brought to the attention of the public at that point, they just would have been given out at face value along with the rest of it until all the stockpile was depleted. But people who worked at the Treasury realized that maybe, these are low mintage coins, they might have more value. The numismatic community was totally split as to what should be done with the coins because there are a lot of cheese guarding collectors who didn't want their coin to decrease in value because all of a sudden half of the mintage of 2 million coins was being released to the public. It turned out that the fears about these coins wrecking the market were unfounded because all they did is exploded interest in the market.
Yeah.
Second thing is, so we're talking, so that's why it takes the government a few years to decide what to do with it. There were like many deliberations. Congress deliberated about what to do with these coins. The Treasury deliberated. The numismatic community gave input. Key numismatic figures of the time went to the West Point Mint to observe the coins. So this was like a situation where the government was working with the hobby to figure out what the right disposition would be for the coins. So when the coins get released, you have to understand this. Not only are they Old West coins, not only are they low mintage coins, not only are nearly all of them in mint condition, but for the 1970s and early 1980s, these were the most popular coins in the series that were collected. These coins for a decade were top of mind for anybody getting into coin collecting, anybody into Morgan dollars. And so when you're collecting these coins, like that 10-year stretch where these were like the topic du jour of coin collecting, that still penetrates like people's idea of these coins. And I think that is why the GSA holders hold such a powerful market force right now, because it's connected to that period of time when the GSA Morgan dollars are the biggest story in coins.
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt.
So Russ, let's go through these date by date. What do we got? 82, 83, 84.
So we're going to talk about 63 and 64 grade.
Yep.
I've run into study like because there's a current disposition between how to collect it, what holder to buy, that kind of thing. So I've run the numbers on PCGS, NGC, and then CAC, both PCGS and NGC. And for the 63 grades of the Carson cities, they're pretty consistent. But for example, over the past year, the last 10 auction records for an 1882 Carson City PCGS 63, the average is $341. And incidentally, that's been all of those sales are from Stax Bowers in their either collector's choice online auction or showcase auction. And in many cases, throughout what we're talking about, that's the source of these coins. You have a low of 288, but a high of 456. And I'll also preface as we go along, but I'll say right now that these high prices oftentimes don't indicate the general trend. 456 is the high, but then 341 is the average. That's more of the price that you would expect to pay for a coin. I wouldn't try to buy one under $300.
And keep in mind when we're looking at a 63cc coin, I would say kind of typical uncirculated for the issue. I
Yeah.
mean, if you look at them, so uh, this would have been the one you would have gotten by chance if you had only ordered one coin. Odds are it would have been a 63. But the price does start to go up when you hit the 64.
Well, with NGC, it was 314. So from PC 341, 314 to NGC. And with CAC, it turns out that you have 416 as the average price. So you have a substantial jump, and that's taking both the coins into consideration.
Are you
Um,
are you guys getting CAC like prices for your NGC green holder coins that RARCOA is
we
putting?
are, we are. And right now we don't have any in stock. I mean, it's just because, as I said, buying the quality first, you look at the coin, you see like a clean cheek, a great strike, no really distracting marks in the fields on both sides. And sometimes with the Carson Cities especially, you can have a cartwheel luster. So they don't last. Um, as the same story as with the 64 grade, PCGS average is 358, NGC is 338, with the CAC average 420. Now, what I find also I should say about this going forward is that these lower price coins you're not often going to find them with the CAC sticker. I know in talks with John, he really doesn't want to grade $100 and $200 coins because he would be inundated with them. And, obviously the amount it costs to grade them is prohibitive. So a lot of the auction prices that I'm looking at stretch back not just 1 year, but maybe 5 years. So, but still, there's a market increase in the pricing of that.
And I would say if you become a sophisticated collector and you look at enough coins, you'll develop the eye to be able to, I would say, consistently be able to get a CAC sticker on a coin. So long as you're aware of what a dipped coin looks like or an improperly dipped coin looks like, and so long as you're like paying attention to things like luster, originality, die state, strike, those types of things. So I think the more you get familiar with the coins, the more you compare the coin you're buying against other coins in the market, you're going to start to be able to develop that eye so that you'll have a higher success rate when you submit to the CAC. I always find that it's easier for sophisticated collectors to get a higher percentage of CAC stickers to return in their submissions than it is for dealers because they're trying to, commercialize mini coins. Yeah, so the objectives of the two different submissions are different. One's strictly commercial, although I don't think dealers want to waste money sending inferior coins to CAC. But I think a specialist collector in any series is going to at some point develop and refine the skill to be able to know what a quality coin is in their series.
And I'll also say, it's kind of a little secret that I pretty much hasn't let out before, but under a variety of different light sources, you can see the differences in the surfaces of these coins. Um, like when I scan a coin for an image to put on the website, it's amazing. The coin that it was not endorsed by CAC can look funky under a scanner bed or like an ultraviolet light versus a CAC coin. So, look, different light sources actually can help.
You think that's a factor of processing?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do. I
yeah.
do. I mean, too much dipping, as you mentioned earlier, takes the life out of a coin. Although I don't think that they necessarily, you uh, judge by too much dipping, but you can tell. I mean, if a coin just doesn't have the life that it's supposed to have, obviously it's been processed too heavily.
And that's the interesting thing about dipping too. I mean, for some coins, one dip is too much, and for other coins,
True enough.
so
Well, the early dollars, you dip a coin that's like dark, you've lost a lot of value right there and
I
a lot of collector interest.
coin becomes obscene at a certain point. Um,
83 cc.
83cc.
Okay. You want me to just run through the averages?
Yeah, I mean, I think like we were talking about how the 83s and 84 cc's are pretty much like it's sort of like they're basically siblings. The 82 is certainly a little tougher, but the 83 and 84, these were the highest concentration of the Morgan dollars that got out to the public were these two dates.
Yeah, when we get to the estimates, there'll be a different story on the pricing. But so 355 is the average for an 83 cc PC 63. 300 is the average for an NGC 1883 cc in 63 grade. And the CAC for both services is 454. That's a pretty big difference. For 64s, average PC 64 grade is 350. The average NGC grade is actually 379. However, there is a couple of numbers in there that might actually throw that off, like a $600 GSA. Remember, I mentioned GSA is going to throw it off.
Yeah.
$600 for that, and another one at 456. For CAC 64, both services, 570, and the high was 1,320. And I'll have to add, like, why do you have a huge price like that? Well, I bet you if we popped it up on the screen, you'd see it has great color.
Right.
Another market entirely. 84cc, moving on, PC 63, 312. Okay, that's the lowest out of any of them. We had 82 at 340, 83 at 350, and now we have 312 for the 84cc and PC 63. 319 for the NGC 63. They're pretty much hand in hand. And for the PC NG 63 grades, 457 is your average. So you're paying a good 50% more for the CAC endorsement.
Do you find that like collectors are getting that some portion of that back when they sell? Like, are you more interested as an over-the-counter deal seeing CC Morgans of this these dates than non-CCs?
With the CAC sticker.
Yeah. CAC stickers,
I,
yeah.
I very rarely see them with a CAC sticker. I think that what has to happen because of how much it costs
Right.
to to submit them in and then to get them back, shipping and all that. I don't think a lot of people do it. There are people out there who just insist that they do get everything CAC. So Maybe that's why they exist. But with a coin at $300 and you're paying how much to CAC that coin?
It's just about the same as submitting it for grading. So,
Yeah, like $50, all in, maybe $70 after shipping.
right.
It's like where's the return on that? Um, and so I covered the 64 grade. No, did I? Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right, so 84cc, no, 84cc and 64 PC is 367. NGC 64 is 374. The CAC is 429. So there's a general theme here. CAC, when you can find it, gets more money. And I think if you're dealing with somebody who recognizes that, you're going to get that return. It's kind of an insurance policy. If you put it at auction, like Great Collections or through the Stack's Bowers, um, their collector's choice auction or the showcase auctions that they have, uh, you will find there's more collector interest there.
Yeah, I would caution people about tone coins a little bit. I find that there's a type of tone coin that absolutely every day of the week is worth more money. And that's like really colorful. Doesn't have to be colorful on both sides. It doesn't even have to be colorful over the entire surface of either the obverse or reverse, but it has to be vivid, beautiful color. There's a difference between that and a coin that is tarnished, which is to say that it's predominantly one color. Perhaps it's like gold or brown or spotted or because you'll see sellers sometimes, and these aren't usually professional dealers, but sellers will, call a coin beautifully toned or rainbow toned when it's just tarnished. And
Well, I went and I covered all of what we just did, and we talked about the low prices.
right.
You'd be thinking that you'd be talking one grade beneath the grade that we're discussing because of that very thing. We don't buy coins for our inventory that are spotted or have that tarnish or have that yellow. If it has a rim toning, golden rim toning, that's fine. There are some people who will accept that. But if something draws your eye immediately, like a spot in the ear or something like that, you're like, wow, I would put the coin down if I were you, if I were looking to build this 50 coin set, because that's the first thing the next guy is going to look at when you're trying to sell it.
That's right. So the color has to be a masterpiece with the color, or we don't consider it beautifully toned.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to have crescent, you're going to have, like, or full moon toning, like with the colors, and the color schemes are important. Um, I've seen where coins are toned on both sides, realize astounding sums of money because that's a very unusual situation.
All right, so we're gonna talk about, I guess, the caviar of the Morgan Dollar series. That's these estimate coins, especially the early date estimate coins. It's amazing when you think about how difficult it was to get like the proper coining chemicals from the East Coast to California, and without the benefit of the Panama Canal.
Well, the Transcontinental Railroad had established itself by then.
Yeah, but it's a bumpy ride still.
Yeah.
But it's astonishing that this faraway mint was basically probably the preeminent mint in the United States when it was making Morgan dollars. These were the best looking Morgan dollars that were ever made. Uh,
Yeah.
Put
Right.
Philadelphia to shame, made New Orleans look like it was a rural backwater. Don't even want to speak about the quality of. I mean, of course, the Lonigan and Charlotte never made silver dollars, but their gold coins were pretty rough. But these San Francisco coins were just phenomenal. A lot of dimples, a lot of proof-like coins, coins that won't earn those characters classifications, but still have booming, blinding luster. A lot of razor sharp strikes. I mean, these are great coins. And I think
Well,
that that's what's always made them popular.
I and I agree with you. I mean, but I also think that even in the founding days, 1854 being the first year, just think of all the Central America gold that's come up that has that same sort of characteristic. I mean, they just never seem to lose that the ability to make a great product.
Well, until they started making Lincoln cents in the 20s. It all went to crap. All right, so let's talk about the San Francisco portion of our 50 coin set contains 8 coins. So we're going to have 1878 to 1882 S inclusive. We're going to get the 1890 and 1897 S. Those are a little bit stretchy coins. They're not going to be as cheap as the early dates. And then we're going to close it out with the 21S, which is an unusual coin. And the collecting community's understanding of the 21 has changed dramatically since the 60s. That was a coin that nobody wanted. They were so common. But as we started to understand grading, coin grading, the 21D and the 21S became more interesting than we initially realized. But that's later. We'll get to that one later. So we're going to start with the 1878S. It's a matter of like numismatic record that the first Morgan dollars that were struck in the San Francisco Mint. They were struck on April 17th, 1878. And by the end of the year, San Francisco had struck 9,774,000 of these coins, which is a little bit more than what Philadelphia Mint was able to produce. The reason these mintages were so high is that Congress was mandating that the mint strike millions of these coins per year to appease the Silverites, who wanted to see bimetallism return and thought that they were slighted when the silver dollar was discontinued with the Coinage Act of 1873 in lieu of the trade dollar.
Mhm. Yep.
Um, so what we see here is that most of the mintage of these 1878 S's, I don't know, I'd say that probably held true to the 79, 80, 81, and 82. Most of these remain in storage for decades, which is why they're so plentiful in mint state. And of course, they're no longer stored in quantity as they've been distributed. But we start our story with the San Francisco coins with this very first issue. So what do you think about the 78S, Ross?
Um, it follows the same line of thinking. I think that where the PCGS coin for this issue is going to be more desirable than the NGC coin. Um, Average for 63 PC is 170, 135 for NGC, and for CAC 175. But the 175, by the way, that auction analysis, these are like the most recent 10 auction appearances. That auction analysis goes from 2023 to 2015. That's how few CAC 1878S coins in 63 grade has been made available at auction. In 2018, there was a $79, 89, 69, 71. That goes perfectly in what you were saying about how these coins have appreciated in value, because now, uh, they're trading for about 190. Let's see. Yeah, the CAC could be about a $200 coin.
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good price performance.
Yeah, it's really good. And also, there's been some heightened interest in actually putting a first year of issue 1878 set together, where you have the 8-tail feather, the 7-tail feather, reverse 78, 79. You have the Carson City, you have the San Francisco, and then you have the overdates, the uh, 7 or 8-tail feathers, weak and strong.
So
So,
we get
yeah.
so when we get to the 1880, I think the strike ball. I'm sure. Go ahead. Did we miss the 64s?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Sorry.
Uh, NGC and PCGS are identical at 180. CAC at 258. And then we have 79S, right?
Right. So I would say that the 79 and I would say the 79, 80, and 81S I think are like a smidge better than the 78 S's as far as the coins I've seen,
You
um,
mean quality?
quality wise, and I think the 81 is probably the best of the best.
Quality wise, yeah,
Right. But the 79s tend to come really nice
they do.
in my experience.
MS67 coin is a real sight to behold.
Yeah, so interestingly, for you cherry pickers out there, and I don't know how successful you're going to be doing this, but the 79S actually has two different reverses, and they're both red book varieties. The second reverse, obviously, the scarcer of the two, and these are typically common through MS64. So this is like one of those coins, honestly, 79, 80, 81S. I mean, if I'm putting the set together, I don't know if I'm going with a three because there's so many fives that you can get. It's weird to me. Like,
Oh, this is pretty great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it almost feels like it almost
Yeah,
feels to me like you want to be where the action is on a coin,
you're
and
absolutely right about that because, when you see a 65, you want that, you want it. When you see a 63 for an extra $100, it's like, wow, I could have a 65 instead. Mhm.
I mean,
Which
because
is why I'm glad that the set that you established, with NGC, that 50 coin set, it doesn't matter what grade it is. You buy what you like.
right. So and maybe you're not like that. Maybe you just want to get a matching set. But I'm gonna tell you right now, an 1879S and 63 is not gonna look anything like a New Orleans 63. They're just not gonna look the same. And so I don't know. Maybe if you really just want to stretch on one coin, get the best 1881S or 79S you can find, because at least that would be the coin you stare at all the time when you want to drool over a coin.
We found that the 79Ss are a little bit more difficult to find than the 80s and 81s. For some reason, I don't know. I mean, it just seems that there aren't as many around there. And if you go back into the boxes we have, we might have 10 79Ss, but we have 40 80Ss.
Oh, that's interesting. So what
Yeah.
are the 79Ss going for now?
It's really it's kind of head scratching because the average for a 63 is higher than the average of the 64.
Is that just due to the volume of coins that are coming to market now, or?
Well, it's just the number. I mean, when you find somebody paying 264, 168 for a 63, and then the last auction record for a 64 was 145, it's got to be color or it's got to be a look. But it goes back to saying, like you buy the coin. I mean, maybe these people stretched and maybe they are colorful, but I'm doing the average of the last 10 appearances, and the averages don't lie. From 125 to 140, you would think it'd be the other way around. With CAC, however, in 63, you have 218 and 378. So that makes more sense for 79S. And for an 80S, I think that the same thing applies. Well, here you go. $100 for a 63, two and a quarter for a 64, and then the CAC difference is 279 to 478 for ADS. That was in 96. In June of last year, an 81S in 64 grade realized $5,280.
Wow. You know, I
And
was
there's another one at 1,000 and another one at 2,600. So they're not all created the same.
so I'm gonna throw you a curveball here, Russ. I'm looking at the recent sales on eBay, and I'm back at the 79S. Um, there are some banger 66 coins here for like 300 to 500 bucks. Like really like sharp coins.
There you
Um,
go.
but there's also some really nasty looking coins in the same price range.
There you
And I
go.
think that really comes down to like the collectors being, like here's example. I'm just going to describe it. Maybe I'll screenshot this and I can put the illustration up. So here's your choice. For $305, you can get a coin that's mostly brilliant, but it's got dark black and brown copper spots at 12 o'clock in Liberty's hair, on Liberty's neck, at 6 o'clock, at the rim at 9 o'clock, at the rim at 3 o'clock. That sounds like a disaster. Or you could pay 369 after 30 bids. That first coin was a buy it now coin. So the dealer listed it and somebody bought it $305. The second coin had 30 bids and a PC holder, like frost on all the devices. It's like a white duck on a black pond, 69 and MS66. I mean, I don't want to tell you what to do with your money. Maybe for some people, $64 is like 3 hours of work or something, but I wouldn't pay $305 for that first coin when the second coin was available for 369. And
Nobody's going to want it. And I'll tell you, I'm I'm at the New Hampshire show last Thursday and Friday, and on Friday, a guy comes up and he trades me an MS64 Saint, really nice PC4 Saint, and puts it down to a Carson City 20. He comes back and he wants to sell me four more 63 Saints, and these 63 Saints are the farthest cry from a black duck on a white pond or whatever you said as you can get. And I had to refuse them. Even at our published bid price, I just couldn't take them because I wouldn't want to be the guy who sells somebody those coins. You
No,
know? So, I mean, it's that eBay example right there. They got to go somewhere, and it's a different market entirely.
yeah, you definitely don't want to like you don't want to be the dealer that has a fixed price list out there marketing a coin and deliver that coin, but it's nasty because you're going to get it back like three-quarters of the time you send it out, and it's just and then you've damaged your reputation, you've wasted money and time, you wasted the collector's time. It's just
I'm afraid that these coins are destined for a telemarketing operation to sell to somebody who's never actually seen the coins before, and we kind of anticipate or expect the coins to look like that, you know? And then they find out years later when they go to sell it that, well, we really don't want it, like in my case, or they get a deep discount bid offer.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, I mean, I honestly, I've never seen coins like that in your case. So,
No,
you
no
won't.
chance. I won't do it.
All right, the 81S. I mean, this is my favorite coin of the series, honestly, from a look perspective. Well, like when you close your eyes and imagine an 81S. I mean, first of all, can can you identify this coin? If someone covered the date, do you think you reasonably would be able to tell it's an 81S by look?
Well, the booming luster is one thing. It's going to narrow it down to an 80 or an 81. But I think an 81 is like a little bit darker field, when you look at it. I know it's hard to say darker with silver.
Like more contrast with the luster, I guess the
Yeah,
way.
or a deeper reflectivity.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Because, you are talking about a year later, they have perfected, they've gone through 365 days of making one date, and now they're going on to make another. So they maybe had a special way of polishing the dies before they struck them or keeping them polished because most of them look the same.
Yeah, they're just phenomenal coins.
Yeah.
And again, like, I know we're focusing on threes and fours, but if you're going to get a $400, tougher date coin, why do you want a 70, $80 like coin that could come really awesome for three or $400? But like I said, it's a choice you're going to have to make.
Well, if
Um,
you're looking for one particular coin to give as a gift,
yeah,
the 81S would certainly be on the top of the list.
right.
It wouldn't be necessarily for the 100-year-old grandfather, but like a 50-year anniversary or something like that might be appropriate. Or just to get any kid interested in coins. 81S would be a great way to start.
Yeah. So we get the well, especially now that they're remaking they're making tributes to the Morgan and Peace dollars, the mint is you
Yep.
those coins look perfect essentially because they are, but they don't look like no Morgan dollar ever really looked like that. So if you want to get a as close to perfect looking coin from the original Morgan dollar run, the 81S as a gift, along with maybe your annual gift of get them their birth year 2024, 25 Morgan dollar tribute coin, or if the mint continues to make them every year, you get them one of those, but they get the original one from this perfect date so that they can compare the real thing against the modern version. All right, let's move on. 82. This is the last of the cheapies for the 1880s from San Francisco. Um, there were quite a few 83S's that were struck too, if you're like one of those looking at mintages in the red book.
Yep.
But the deal with the 83S is that it's one of those conditional rarities once you get to mint state. So it doesn't, that means that many of those coins would have circulated or been melted over the years. There wasn't a huge inventory of them that were released in mint state. So those wouldn't make our list because of that. But I think the 82S is one of those overlooked coins because the 81S is so popular and comes so nice. But I would say that the two dates are kind of equivalent in availability. But I would
No,
get.
no, 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 no,
Oh, you don't
no,
think so?
no, no, not at all. No, I disagree. And I only say that not from trading experience, but I know how difficult it is to find 82Ss here to put our 20 and 30 coin sets together.
All right, tell me about it. What do you got to go through to get them?
We just don't find them nice. It's crazy. I mean, this 82S stands alone from the 79, 80, and 81S in my mind, and certainly, Ryan, who has the program together here at RARCOA, Ryan Ryan Cook, he's always saying, "I'm looking for 82Ss."
So what's it about it? What do you think? Because like when you look at the certified population reports, you look at what was available, how many bags are distributed, you wouldn't think there'd be a huge difference. But what is it?
I honestly can't tell you, but all I know is that we have a hard time finding the coins.
So
Now, I
what kind
think
of
I will say this. I've seen more toned 82Ss than I've seen 79, 80, and 81, which then if you're selling white sets, you have to dip and then like send into the grading services or have them do the conservation for you, which gets into a complete hassle. But you need the coin for the set.
So then how does that impact the price on the 82S then?
1.25 to 270, but with CAC, I see a lot more activity. Like you have $383 for 63 versus a non-CAC at 128. And for a CAC 64, 500 versus 500 versus 350 between the grades. So those prices are far greater than the 80, 79, 80, and 81Ss.
All right, so let's we got two more or three more, I guess. We got the 1890S. So this is the I would call this one of the reach coins in our list of this San Francisco date run. But I think this is one of those underappreciated coins and choice to gem grades. LeVar Redfield, I think, had about 20 bags of these, but a lot of those were really banged up. A lot of counting wheel marks were put on the coins when they were processed before they were distributed by Paramount. And which is a shame because otherwise these are usually well struck coins, but there's a pretty big price jump I think when you get from 64 to 65.
Without
And
a doubt.
and then so you're looking at the 3-4 grade is kind of like your everyday man collector grade, but it's still this coin is still several $100s. So what can you tell me about it? Is this a coin that you guys get a lot of requests for at RARCOA?
Well, we get the requests because we're constantly selling other companies the sets that we make. So not in a 20 coin set, not in a 30, but the 50 coin set. This is a requirement. So that's where our demand comes from. So we are market makers in all of these states, but in particular, these harder to find. The price for 90S is going to be 50% higher than a common date in 63 grade. And it's going to be probably 100% higher than a common date in 64 grade. The average is 150 versus 275 for 63 and 64. And when you get to CAC, you're talking 235 to 355, 63 to 64. So, I mean, there are more CACs, I think, out there because the coin's value is greater and it just seems to be more marketable if you buy a CAC to a thoughtful and intelligent market participant. But then again, if you look at the coins like we were talking about with the 80S, the 81S, and you buy what really appeals to you, the chances are very good that it's going to appeal to the next buyer when you sell it.
All right, so country goes through a pretty tough time economically in 1893, which is why the 1893 CC and S mint coins are mega rarities. But the first date that we get is sort of the penultimate of our San Francisco list, where the coins become affordable again to the average collector is going to be the 1897 S.
Yeah.
This is another one of the Redfield dates. Again, he had over 20 bags of this date as well. But you could probably get this bag, from banks or in the Treasury through the early 60s, and they were distributed over time. But the coin still is kind of scarce in gem, and so the 3, 4 grades are kind of the affordable grades in this. Once you start getting above 65, 66, it becomes definitely a coin you have to spend some money on. So would you would agree this is kind of like the 90s? This is like one of the semi keys to our 50 coin set here.
Yes, without a doubt. In fact, I think it's harder to find, and it's going to be more expensive than the 90S. In 63, it's a $200 coin. In 64, it's going to be a $300 coin. And CAC it's 240, maybe sort of a 20% over under on the 63 grade. And it's 375 on the 64. So another 20% added to it, which is a far cry from the 100% that, or maybe more, that you're going to see with the cheaper coins. Maybe it's because they just don't exist. But at least you can isolate and be confident that a CAC is going to cost you 20% more than a non-CAC in either grade.
So we're gonna get to here to the last coin. In fact, actually, I'm gonna double dip here because I think we probably should talk about the Denver Mint coin too. But we're like on the 21D and the 21S Morgan dollars. So the the fact of the matter is that during the World War I, the United States Congress, through its Lend-Lease program, started to get involved in the war effort before it actually got involved. And one of the ways it helped the British Empire was to sell it hundreds of millions of ounces of silver, which it then replenished by statute. And that silver came from these unused silver dollars, which were converted into bullion, shipped over, and then they became struck by the British into Indian rupees to sort of shore up the faith and credit in their economic system. Part of Germany's total war effort was to undermine the British currency. So in 1921, the war is over, but the price has come due on restriking these coins that have been melted. And so what do? They resuscitate the dormant Morgan dollar, which hadn't been struck since 1904, and they start striking hundreds of millions of coins. Now, at the same time, Farron Zerbe and other collectors at the ANA were hustling around trying to get some support to create the peace dollar, a peace dollar. I'm not suggesting that the one that was made was the one they had in mind, but they were trying to get a coin to commemorate peace, and they figured that this was just as good a time as any to do it. So, obviously by the end of the year, after hundreds of millions of Morgan dollars are struck, the Mint starts to experiment with Anthony DeFrancisi's peace dollar design. Eventually, they strike some, and in 22, we start to see that as a circulating coin. The 21 coins, from all accounts I got from the old timers who are depleting the treasury stockpile of coins, is they wanted any date, any bag, but the 21s, because like they just essentially were bullion coins. There's so many of them. There's no market for it. They were created with completely new hubs, so they aren't exactly like the same as the original 78 to 1904 Morgans. And they are unusual in the sense that the Denver Mint strikes its first Morgan and only Morgan dollar that year. The Denver Mint wasn't operational until the 1906. and they weren't making Morgan dollars then. So you get the Philly strike, which has got the highest mintage. You get the Denver and the San Francisco strike, which have many, many millions of coins. Um, but turns out the Denver and San Francisco coins are kind of conditionally scarce in gem or superb gem grades, which gives them a different character than we ever anticipated before coin grading became a thing. Before then, it was just they were junk, and now they're considered a little bit, they're treated differently in the market. So I think it's kind of a tough coin to get in gem, a 21S. It's not as tough as some other dates, but it's for a common coin. It's not a common grade.
21S, I'll say this, that it's a really hard coin to locate that's nice because you have that softness of strike. You don't have it well struck up like you do have some of the other San Francisco mint coins. It's kind of flat, but it oftentimes can take on a luster that you wouldn't expect, especially when you compare them to the 21 or the 21D. For 63, it's like a $130 coin. And for 64, it's two and a quarter, maybe. Um, and the CAC prices would be 160, again, 20% more. And 275, another maybe 20 or 30% more for a 64 grade.
And you're going to find pretty much a similar story with the D-Mint coins. Um, so, like I said, this is the 50 coin set. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So I just invite anybody who wants to take on this task to do your research on each individual date before you buy them. Be judicious about the coins you pick. Best if you have coin shows in your area or if you can travel to one to buy directly from a reputable dealer after you look at the coins in hand. But there are opportunities with return privileges from many of the nationally known dealers, including RARCOA, that you can make a purchase, and as long as you're not abusing the system, that they'll you tell them what they want, they try to send it to you. If it doesn't work out, maybe you get a different coin. But
Also, we want to buy them back when
yeah,
it's ready to sell.
definitely deal with somebody who wants to buy the coins back. If you started collecting your Morgan 50 set, I would say when we did our first video, you're probably already ahead. So, if you're getting started now, it's not too late. Silver's still cheap, and these coins are still available, and it's an exciting time to collect.
Indeed.
Thank you, Russ. Have a great week. You're going to a show, Central States, right?
Yeah, I got Central States actually this afternoon, running through the week, and that's gonna be a pretty interesting show for sure.
You got a big coin you're going to have at your bourse, your table?
I will have several. I have two of the Kentucky Hoard 1863 $20 gold pieces. So they're both 63 grade. One is cacked and one is not. I
Do
don't
you ever,
know why.
you ever sell that gold coin we were looking at? I was looking at with that collector at the show. Did he end up buying your coin? Remember the one I walked to? I walked to the other dealer. They wanted to compare it.
Oh yeah, very good. Yeah, he did buy it.
He
It was
bought from you,
the SS Republic 1864 20.
so
Yeah,
he bought your coin.
he did. He did indeed. And now he's on to he and his wife, very pleasant people, good to work with. They're now on to buying a Civil War $3 gold piece.
Right. That was the softest selling tactic I've ever deployed on somebody, taking them to your competitor's table, telling them good and bad things about both coins, and letting them make their own decision.
It's the right thing to do, but you know what? Sometimes you can't beat a good story.
Right. All right, Russ. Well, good, good, good. I'm glad I was able to help at least in some small way.
Oh, Charles, you help out more than you know.
All right. Well, take it easy. Have a great trip at Central States and sell, sell, sell.
Bye, bye, bye.